Welcome to Whiskey as a Journey. My name is Peter Fasciano. And before I get to my review of Blanton'S, I want to take some time and thank all of my new subscribers, specifically the people that have been leaving comments, liking the video. And I also want to thank Stuffin' Whiskey for acknowledging and giving me encouragement to continue to do what I'm doing. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and move on to Blanton'S. This is the fourth whiskey in my tour of Buffalo Trace Distillery. So let's go ahead and pour it, nose it, taste it, and talk about it as whiskey goes all over the place. Blanton'S is coming out of Buffalo Trace Distillery. The label's all kind of tattered and destroyed. I gave this to my boss. He and a bunch of his buddies went up north and did a fantasy football league draft, and I gave them about 6 or 7 or 8, maybe 9 whiskeys to take with them to try. And this got into a cooler, the label got wet, and it fell off. No big deal. I can still read some of the stuff, and I hope you guys appreciated the whiskey while you're up there. It was my pleasure to share it. That's what whiskey is all about. So with Blanton'S, this one specifically is coming in at 46.5% ABV. That's 93 proof. This was stored in that famous warehouse H. That's the metal-clad warehouse. This particular bottle was dumped on February 21st, 2022. Coming from Rick number 26. This is coming out of barrel 607. This is bottle 65. I paid $65 for this. The whiskey is chill filtered. It is natural color like all Kentucky straight bourbons need to be. This is rumored to be anywhere from 8 to 9 years old. All right, so immediately I'm getting hit with sweetness. The sweetness is more of a honey and vanilla, some of those classic bourbon notes. So on the very far back end, past the sweetness, I get some tobacco and leather. The sweetness is kind of fallen away now, and I'm getting more oak, more tobacco, more a little bit leather there. That's interesting. That first initial smell was all sweet. That really quickly went away, and now I'm left with more spicy tobacco and leather notes. That's very interesting. The sweetness is still there, the vanilla and the honey, but the spicy and the tobacco notes are taking over. Let's go ahead and give it an initial taste. All right, so that initial taste, it hit the front of my tongue pretty spiky. Hit the mid palate, kind of thinned out, and then I've got the oaken spice tannin on the side. Oh, and the very, very back. The very back, now I'm getting some apple. That's interesting. So that sweetness doesn't come on until very, very late. Let's go and give that one another taste. That was interesting. Yeah, that's wild. Sparkly in the very front, flattens out. Tannin on the side. Mouth is burning a little bit of ABV burn in the chest. Got a little tobacco coming through, oak spice, maybe pepper. And then right there, the very back end is the sweet note. Very, very subtle, but it's there. Maybe apple, green apple? No, red apple. That's gotta be red apple. No cherry notes at all. Vanilla, honey, oak spice. On the very, very back end, a little bit of burn, a little bit of heat, small little fruity apple note. Not bad. Let's go ahead and add water to this. Let it sit for a little bit, and then talk about the distillery a little bit more and talk about Blanton'S a little bit more. Now, right at the very start, I mentioned that this was chill filtered. I believe back in the early 90s, Blanton'S used to not be chill filtered. Not sure why they ended up changing it to actually chill filtering it. And the horsey top was not part of the bottle presentation until 1999. The ownership of Blanton'S is a little bit convoluted. So let me go ahead and read from my notes so I don't get anything wrong here. So we're talking about mash bill number 2 from Buffalo Trace. This is their higher rye mash bill, rumored to be anywhere from 10 to 15% rye. But the ownership of this, Buffalo Trace is currently owned by Sazerac. But prior to that, in 1983, George Stagg Distillery, I believe, was owned by Age International, 1983. Then they ended up selling to Takara Holdings in 1992. Immediately, Takara Holdings sold to Sazerac, but they kept the brand trademark rights of Blanton'S and other mash bill 2 whiskeys, which I found very strange. Sazerac owns the distillery, and they own the distribution rights of Blanton'S and other mash bill 2 whiskeys. I'm going to leave the link to the article where I'm getting this information. If anybody out there knows this convoluted story of ownership and selling and trademark rights and all that, leave some comments down below. Now, the story behind Blanton's is actually a pretty good one. Elmer T. Lee was named head distiller in 1981. His boss was Albert Bacon Blanton. And as Elmer T. Lee worked his way up through the company and eventually became master distiller, he noticed that Albert Bacon Blanton would take some select barrels from the warehouses and he would store them in Warehouse H, and that was the metal-clad storehouse. So to pay homage, Elmer T. Lee introduced Blanton's back in 1984. And the claim to fame to this is it is the first commercially sold single-barrel bourbon that was widely distributed. Now, based on the article, they're saying that this was not the first single barrel produced, but I believe this was the first commercially available single barrel bourbon produced. So again, link in the description down below if you're interested in a little bit more information. All right, let's go ahead and get into the second nosing and tasting of this. The sweetness has taken definitely a backseat to the spiciness and the oak. So I would say oak and spice are now the dominant nosing traits here. Very back end, still spicy, still sweet, still get the vanilla, still get the, not caramel. I'm getting the vanilla and the honey, but it's more spice than sweet. Still get the tobacco notes and the oak. Let's see if the water did anything to the palate. If anybody saw my E.H. Taylor video, when I added the water and did my first inhalation here, on that sip, I get a little bit of a dusty, musty type odor. It doesn't come through on the palate, but there's definitely a mustiness. I'm guessing maybe that's part of the malt. The palate with the water doesn't seem to have changed it at all. I know I have a little bit more than I normally do, but I'm not getting much of a difference. Let me go ahead and taste that again. The sharpness is gone. It doesn't hit my tongue with full force like it did without the water. Mid-palate flattens out. I get the tannin in the barrel and the oak on the side of my tongue. I'm searching here. And then on the back end, I still get the apple and the sweetness. So let's go ahead and get on to the scoring. This is out of a 5-star rating. I am basing all of my bourbon scores off of my original bourbon, which was Buffalo Trace. I would put this above Buffalo Trace. It is an easy sipper. The nose and the palate are equal. I'm not really getting anything different between the two. It does flatten out in the mid palate. I do get some spice and oak. And on the very back end, again, I get the apple notes or that sweetness. I think I'm going to go 3.95. These last three whiskeys, the Eagle Rare, the H. Taylor, and Blanton's, they're all good in their own way, but each one of them just doesn't get over that hump for me to push them to 4 stars. I definitely think the best value would be Eagle Rare if you can find it. Eagle Rare to E.H. Taylor is definitely going to be a mood selection. And then this one just kind of hits directly into the middle of Eagle Rare and the E.H. Taylor. So that's where I'm going to leave it today, you guys, 3.95. If you've been watching this series, I have 2 more bourbons to cover. I'm going to do the Weller Antique 107, and then I'm going to finish on a high proof note with the Stag Junior Batch 15. So go ahead and stick around for that. If you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you're liking this information, give me a thumbs up. If you know somebody in the whiskey world that might be interested in this, share it with them. Enjoy your journey. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.